Today we're talking about water heaters. And Eddie, for you as a master plumber who's been in the plumbing industry and seen plumbing for a number of years because of just growing up in a family that is generationally a plumbing family, what would you say is the average length of the life of a water heater?
So I would say usually 10 to 12 years, you should start considering replacing it. That would be like company wide, but we recommend. I mean, they can last 20, 30 years, rarely. Sometimes we even see, I think the oldest one we've seen is 40 years, but generally 10 to 12 years, start thinking about putting a new one in and replacing it.
Are there any factors that shorten that length at all? Or is that like the shortest length it might go?
If you depend on where you are, if you're on well water, so well water typically has like a lot of hardness, which means it has minerals in the water. We've seen them only last 3 or 4 years on well water. Or if you're a municipality somewhere where they pull their water out from a well and they distribute it without treating it, you can have a lot of hardness that can create issues for your tank that needs to be replaced often. But typically, if you're on public water, it's going to last you 10 to 12 years at least before it starts causing problems.
What would be 1 or 2 of the bigger signs that I might be looking for if I'm going to need to either repair it or possibly really replace it?
It's kind of hard to say because the outer part of the tank, it's aesthetics, it's a jacket. Like the actual tank, you can't see it because it's on the outside. You have an outer jacket, and you have insulation, then you actually have the water tank that you can't actually visually see. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes like you can see the rust kind of start to build up on the outside. It's kind of like an indicator, not like a foolproof way. Like you can almost look and say it's starting to get old. But the best way is usually if each water heater, it has the date it was manufactured encoded in the serial number. So you can always Google that and figure out what the age of it is. That's the best way to do it, to kind of give you that gauge of when to replace it, how old it is.
Okay. So you wouldn't necessarily wait for something to break. You would say be proactive, look at the age, and then call a local plumber that you trust, depending on where you live. And around that, that 10 to 12 year mark, just to have them at least assess where things are.
Yeah, that's always ours. It's to replace it, not to have a headache. Like, it always seems like when it breaks, it's going to be on Christmas when you have people over or something, like the worst time. So I'm of the mind and methodology of just do it preemptively. Like, don't worry about it. Take care of it now. And then you're, pretty good. And then there's other line of thought. Like some people will, maybe they have a high risk tolerance and they just kind of stretch it out to the max and see how it goes. So it's usually 2 lines of people that do it. They'll do it preemptively or kind of just wait it out.
And I used to work in the water restoration business and got to see plenty of homes destroyed by water heaters that just completely were leaking. What is the sort of the best water heater brand according to a plumber? You're not sponsored by any brands, but in terms of like just sheer reliability, how long they last, repairs being available easily, because I know plumbers carry certain parts on their trucks and other parts they need to order and stuff like that. What would you say would be the best brand of water heater?
So part of like the part side of it is like regionally, like what kind of support they have in that region, because some areas have like parts availability for certain manufacturers. But for us, we're in Maryland. Usually, like if you want a professional grade water heater, you go to the supply house. Like, so for manufacturer, we really prefer State and A.O. Smith. Those are the 2 big ones we put in. They own each other. I can't remember which one. I think it's A.O. Smith bought State or State bought A.O. Smith, one or the other. But they're made the same. They're the same parts generally, and they work well. They even have A.O. Smith has their own series that goes to big box stores, which we think are no good. Bradford White's another good manufacturer. They're high quality. They've always been. Another professional grade, which we don't recommend, is Rudd, who Rudd and Rheem are owned by the same company. One of them bought out each other. Same thing as A.O. Smith and State. Those 2 water heaters we don't recommend. We've seen personally a lot of issues with those, and a lot of the manufacturer reps for Rudd and Rheem, they won't get back to you what the issues are. So we kind of just wrote them off. But for us, the 3 big ones, the best in our opinion: State, A.O. Smith, Bradford White. They are a great product, and they also have really good support. When you need stuff, they can help you figure out what it is and get you what you need, especially for the gas water heaters, because generally those are things you can't really stock because they have different variations of their gas valves and other parts on it. So you usually have to go through your local dealer to figure out what it is and order it, and they usually can get it to you pretty quick.
Would they be brands that provide both electric and gas water heaters, or is it just electric or just gas for one of those brand lines?
Yeah, they'll do it all. They have it all, gas and electric.
But in terms of like quality, the quality of their gas is the same as the quality of the electric and vice versa kind of thing.
Yeah, they're pretty consistent throughout their line.
What would be the brand that you would say to buy if you don't plan on taking care of your water heater at all and you're not going to be preemptive? It's like, okay, I'm gonna take the risk, and I just want to make sure that I'm taking it on something that is, is as reliable as I know it can be.
There again, I would be a State, A.O. Smith, or Bradford White. Those are the best. Set it and forget it, buy it, and lowest risk, in my opinion, of it being need of repair or replacement in the
Okay.
coming years.
When you're looking between those three, what would people be wanting to like look at in terms of trying to find the right one for them, or in terms of like options of things that they might want to be considering in that purchase?
For the electric, water heaters are pretty standard. Like now, federal regulations are all the same with the amount of insulation they have in it. So you have the same, very similar efficiency rating in electric water heaters. For the electrics, there's really not a big difference between them. And then like, if you're going into the gas water heaters, if you're looking for like a tax credit energy efficiency, like you want to consider a power vent. So there's two types of gas. The two most common are going to be atmospheric, where it vents through a metal tube that comes off the top, metal pipe. And the other one, it vents off a plastic pipe that goes outside. The one with the plastic pipe is called power vent water heater. The one with the metal pipe is atmospheric, meaning the pipe heats up and it draws the fumes out when it's heating up, byproduct of the gas. And then the power vent actually has a motor where it sucks it out and takes it outside. So if you're looking for like in those, if you have a gas water heater, something more efficient, it would be the power vent. But if you don't have one already installed, there's like an upfront cost to it where you have to pay the plumber to run the plastic pipe outside the exhaust, so it can exhaust outside. Everything else is the same, gas pipe and everything. But if you're looking for Energy Star, they do have the power vents. They have the Energy Star rating that you can get, but you do have a higher upfront cost. But then again, outside of that, they're pretty basically the same thing. And even if the cost difference between an atmospheric and the power vent, like the monthly usage isn't that high. But I would say it's the same thing. It's kind of basically the same thing. And unless you want to go step outside of that into a tankless heaters, which is a whole different conversation.
Out of the three that you mentioned, State, A.O. Smith, and what was the third again?
Bradford White.
Is there a more budget-friendly option among the three? Or what would you say to someone who is on a limited budget in terms of what they need?
So it depends on, so they're all pretty close together in terms of cost. Like in terms of our purchasing power, we have a little bit better purchasing power through the state, just because of what they offer through us, through our local reps. We're able to get those at a better price. But outside of that, they're very similar to us in pricing. And it probably changes regionally where you go. Like if they have a big water heater or Bradford White presence in a certain area, you're probably able to get that water heater quicker, faster, cheaper. And it all depends on where, like here where we're at, it's state is very big. And so we just have that availability, purchasing power. So I would say it probably depends on what area you're in. But for A.O. Smith and Bradford White cost us maybe like another 5% to buy through Bradford White, just because we don't buy them all the time, don't have a relationship with a local dealer. So for us as a company, we have better, but usually for stuff like that, they're going to be very similar in price, especially when you get to the models that are just like a standard 50-gallon electric. They're pretty standard in sizing and ability, and you can kind of cross-reference the model numbers. I imagine you're only going to see a $50, $100 difference in buying those.
In terms of like the actual purchase of the water heater itself, that is often done through a plumber, but I'm assuming you could theoretically buy one yourself off the open market and then just give it to your plumber. Would there be a downside to one method of doing it? Do you have customers that do that?
So it's interesting is when we buy it, we can always warranty it. So you have that benefit. And then if they buy it, we'll warranty the workmanship, but we can't warranty what they gave us. So there's a toss up there. But it's funny when the homeowner usually purchases it. So there is a huge difference in my mind. usually if they're going to buy it, they're buying it from a big box store, which just from the experience we have and what we see, it's just, there's so many problems with it. Callbacks, repair issues, just the quality of heaters that the big box store has, even though it has an A.O. Smith name on it or it's Ream or whatever it is, they seem to have all these issues. We recommend to stay away from big box store water heaters to buy professionally. And then when you get into the professional, it's kind of funny. So for us, we have purchasing power through our dealer. So actually if a homeowner walks into a supply house and buys that same heater, we're probably gonna get it substantially cheaper than they can, just because we're buying 30 a month through that dealer. Whereas they're going to go and pay with a credit card, and we have an established relationship where we're just buying. So we can always get them cheaper from the supply house than a customer can always usually. And that's usually big as a markup to like a walk-in homeowner from the supply house. It's usually they're going to charge them an extra $200 over, or $300 sometimes over us, just because there's no relationship there.
Any other things that people should be thinking about if they're in the market to replace their water heater because they're being proactive, like right now? They're watching the video.
So if you're proactive, I would say just research your contractor, check their online reviews, their reputation, how long they've been in business for. And then also another big thing for me is a lot of plumbers have been bought out by private equity companies. So there's a lot of these companies that are out there, it just, in my own opinion, that are owned by some larger corporation where they own like a holding, like multiple companies. So I would say if you're a homeowner, like check your local guy, like his reviews, like history of the company. And usually you have a pretty good average, like batting average, that you're going to get like a good quality company that's going to do good quality work. They're going to get it inspected. If it needs to be in their jurisdiction, it's going to be done right. And then that way you have a higher chance of it lasting longer if they do everything right on the install side, rather than if they just kind of throw it together and, get out of there.